Hey, I did it.
So long since we did this. So
Uh,
long.
it was in 2 weeks.
It's forever in Twitch years. Man, a lot happened in 2 weeks, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, between my Niners looking worse and worse, still fighting, which is nice, but at the same time not winning.
Yeah.
Um, injuries around the league, Gruden, Urban Meyer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I wrote down first.
I mean, yeah. Let's start with the racist, homophobic elephant in the room, John Gruden.
Oh man.
Now on top of that, you just had that whole NFLPAs now petitioning to get the emails from the Washington football team investigation release, which I mean I get, because again, it's that Snyder got fined. The organization got fined $10 million, and he had to step down, but no one knows exactly what he did.
Yeah, I mean, if he got fined 10 million and he can't essentially be part of the organization,
Must have been a lot worse than what we know.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was bad from top to bottom.
Yeah. Well, that's like especially after these emails, you can't tell me that it was just Snyder and Gruden who were awful people. There must be other folks probably still around. So,
of course, there's a ton of rich white guys who think they're probably above the rules, at least above norms.
Kind of are, because that's why these private investigations happen.
True.
You don't know who did what.
Yep. The last thing I read was what was it? That Gruden is going to be removed from Tampa Bay Ring of Honor.
Saw that. It's basically just he's been excised from everything.
Yep. So I'm sure he could say goodbye to telecasting anymore.
Yeah. Considered he had a pretty cushy gig doing that too before he took over.
That he did.
Sheska, my Raiders friend, what do you think of this whole thing? Because I mean, he originally he was optimistic about Gruden, but I imagine now he's like, good. Now we have a good excuse to get rid of him sooner. Because
I mean,
what's interesting to me was, did you see Kerryon Johnson's comments about it?
I didn't. I saw another man's comments about like what he said doesn't hurt my feelings. It's kind of whatever. It's like another sportscaster.
Yeah. So apparently, Kerryon Johnson, he didn't outright state that he always knew Gruden was like that and said stuff, but he didn't outright accuse him, say, yeah, he totally said stuff like that to me, but he kind of skirted around that and basically said, yeah, I've never really liked him. I've always had issues, and this doesn't surprise me. Jay Gruden.
One of his sons is already a strength and conditioning coach there.
Wonder if he's going to leave.
Nope. The only reason I know that is because it said he has no plans of leaving, and they're not going to tell him to get out because he wasn't involved in anything. So
that's fair. But
yeah, at first I was pretty curious about it because I'm like, okay, 2011, sure, he's crotchety old dude, and it's like, okay, if he's progressed to like, basically cut out all that hate talk, that's one thing. It's like, okay, he evolved as a person, came around, but as soon as you said earlier, it was ongoing to what, 2018, 2019?
Yeah, 2018, I believe, the most recent example they found. So yeah, at that point, it's a pattern. Well, that's also one of those, like, I mean, even I understand why people do like, oh, like, it's a one-time thing and they're for different time, but I'm sorry, even by 2010, you should have known better. You really
Yeah.
especially when you're some dude like your 40s, 50s who's a public figure. It's basically since very least mid 2000s, you should know, hey, let's be careful what we do on the internet. It's so many people still just can't figure it out.
Hey, it's like they think they're not going to get caught. It's proven that whatever you put on your phone or on the internet, especially if it touches a hard drive, they'll
Mm-hmm.
find it.
Yeah, it's well, and no matter how many times people get busted, people just don't learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
The original one was from 2011, but it led to emails from as recent as 2018, apparently, and it was from basically the Washington football team investigation. It was found like as part of that. And of course, the NFL saying, "Oh, we didn't leak the emails," but yeah, really does seem like they kind of leaked them just to like draw attention away from the thing with Dan Snyder, and it might have saved Urban Meyer.
I think it kind of did. It was like everyone stopped talking about Urban
Yep.
Meyer's mishap at the club. It's like, really, old man? Like, you just lost a game. You should be back at the, your apartment or wherever you're staying in
Mm.
Jacksonville, maybe your home.
Well, that was the worst part. Is the team was on the airplane back home, and he just stayed
Hmm.
behind. Which, like, that was what Tony Dungy was mad. Was like, look, you're the coach. You should always be the front of the bus, front of the plane with the team. Like, you're
Yep.
ignoring the other shit he did. It's like, why didn't you ride back with your team, dude? You're the leader of them.
He pulled what to me would be like a college coach move, which is, oh, you guys go ahead. I'm gonna stay here and visit family.
Yeah.
Which that was his reasoning. It was like he was visiting grandkids, and it's like, okay, yeah, but
I sure hope that
you're
wasn't a grandkid.
yeah, it wasn't. But you haven't won a game. You just came off another like crippling loss because it was so
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
You should go home and just keep hitting film, keep working. I already see articles about like maybe he's gonna get fired, and some prop bets have popped up about like him being fired before the end of the season.
I think he wouldn't, like, I don't think there was a chance that happening until this. Because it's one, like, I mean, the reality is, it doesn't matter who you put in that situation, they were going to struggle. Maybe not as much as he has, but it's just taking over a feudal franchise isn't something you can really truly turn around in a single year. So I would have figured they would have given him at least a 2-year window. But this incident might have definitely said, all right, you're either A, turning around now, or you're gone mid-season, or you have a very thin leash next year.
Yeah, I think it comes down to if he wins a couple games. If he wins a couple games this season, breaks that losing streak, I think he bought
Mm,
himself another year. If he can
yeah.
kind of get the guys to turn around a bit. Um, if he can't get that, yeah, I could see him be gone by next season.
Mm. I mean, and it also depends. Like, I mean, Lawrence did look better in that game. And it's interesting that it was like, not only did he look better, but against a team that had been in the playoffs the past 2 years. So, like, that's interesting that their best game was against the best team they've really played so far. So, I mean, even the
Yeah,
best
it
coach.
to me like so that was the game against the Cardinals, right?
So this last one was
The
against.
one,
Well, so like the one against the Cardinals, he had 2 interceptions. This one, he had zero
yeah,
interceptions, and he threw for more yards. So that's what I mean by like. I mean, yeah, the Cardinals, I guess, are better than the Titans, but it's just he has shown to be getting better. So I'm curious to see if this derails what progress they made as a team or not.
yeah, and like the one that they lost, which was against the Bengals on Thursday night. Um, that one was close, but
Mm,
I've noticed kind of an uptick in their run game,
yeah.
kind of since the Cardinal game, which is what Urban Meyer wanted to begin with.
Hmm.
I just think he wasn't bought into James Robinson, which
Yeah.
is
Well,
kind
I
of
mean,
annoying.
but it's also one of those, they literally had this is going to be our guy. We just drafted him, and he knows their quarterback, and then right before the season starts, he gets hurt. So as having seen that happen to multiple people with the Vikings, I get it.
Yeah.
And so he really is. He
Yep.
really is. If the NFL didn't leak those emails, Meyer did.
I'm surprised they didn't leak sooner after seeing how many people those like emails went through.
That makes you like, and that's what really makes me think it was an intentional leak, because there's no way that it was just Gruden's emails that got released, unless either A, it was intentional, or B, the NFL was just like, oh no, this isn't part of the investigation. They weren't official emails, so they just basically didn't secure those ones properly.
Yeah.
Either way, I, I can't. I have a hard time believing the NFL wasn't behind it.
Same. Like I pulled up a New York Times article that was like put up 20 minutes ago.
Hmm.
Just kind of fired off towards like new information in it. And it's like those emails went out to like CEO of Hooters and like other retailers, and like it wasn't just within the NFL. And it's like, yeah, these are it sounds like the right guy, the guy who
Yeah.
owns Hooters, but surprising, it wouldn't leak out from him or
Well,
anyone else.
that's actually like makes it even more. I don't know, like sad but not surprising is that it was probably just a personal email chain with all the buddies. Instead of texting each other like most people would nowadays, they were emailing this shit for some reason.
Well, they're also old.
I mean, which I mean, yeah, but at the same time, then you think they'd just do text because that's easier. They just because I've seen how much some of the people their age and I've seen how much people their age can struggle with emails.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be curious to see how the Meyer one shakes out, especially with this kind of relieving some of the pressure.
Same.
What text?
You should have sent him an email.
I mean, are you talking about the text you sent me about the game like a few days ago? Because that's the only text I got from you about how the Utah finally won at USC in LA for the first time in 106 years. Now they
Dang.
haven't played there a lot since then, but the last time they won a game in LA was in 1916. I don't know if you were serious or not. Because me missing a
Oh
text
yeah.
is legitimately something I would do with you. I don't know what you mean by this next point. This next topic. Oh, wait, okay.
So
Now I get it. I had to read the
I
question
don't.
again.
Oh, yeah. So I don't
Okay.
know. So it's more or less coach criticism because it's like as a Niners fan, it's like as I sit in all these um like Niner fan run Twitters, people who kind of evaluate tape, the beat writers. Like there's tons of people giving negative feedback about Shanahan,
Hmm.
and it's a lot of like we need to be more critical of him, but it's like okay with what? And then people just nitpick like why did he run here? Like, well, because it was a play call. Like, it's literally just minute, stupid shit,
I mean,
and
so
it bothers me.
I'd be curious to see that because I do
I probably will too.
wonder if some of the criticism that is too nitpicky to you is similar to some of the criticism that gets levied at Sean McVay. Because it
Yeah,
does seem like if you really go take away, really, I mean, that one season where you guys made it to like, what is it, the championship and then lost, he really has underperformed with what he's had, in a sense. Like, I mean,
I
even look at this season right now, it's you would think you guys would be doing a lot better than you have been, all things considered. Like, yeah, you've had some injuries, but there are other teams who have had just as many injuries that are still doing pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say yes and no. We performed a lot better than I expected last week against the Cardinals. Like, legitimately, with how limited Trey Lance has kind of been, and there's no huge push to get him starting.
Hmm.
Um, the game plan he had around him, which was basically run the ball a lot, not really ask him to throw the ball around. Because he struggles. He doesn't have a touch ball. He throws just lasers, and he got blocked, I think, like 3 or 4 times. And crucial throws. Um, I don't know. It just feels like some of the injuries that they get during the game are very key and very similar situation. Like, even if you watched last night's game, the Colts and Ravens, as soon as you lose that like starting corner,
Yeah, I can
I think they
agree.
had one corner go down, and I think a linebacker. I want to say the linebacker was later in the game, but I know they had a corner come out, and yeah, the Ravens were just passing all over them after that.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I feel like the star power they have, the stars they do have tend to always get injured, which is your
Hmm.
Kittle, your Garoppolo on offense. The defense held up well, and even created opportunities. But I mean, there's only so much you can do when you can't rely on a thrower.
But I mean, like this one thing is, it really does feel like the tone was set for you guys' season from game one. Like, really look at that first game against the Lions. You guys allowed the Lions to give more points than any team this year. And the Lions have, like, they've played some, let's see, Packers, Ravens, Bears, Vikings. And that's I think really kind of what's interesting to me. And that's what I mean by, like, I can understand why people are being critical. It's like, really, it's, you know, from game one, how many injuries did you guys really have to start that game? And also, like, look at the way, like, they came really close to coming back in pretty quickly against what should arguably be probably your strength. So that's why I wonder. Like, I imagine that's why there's a lot more people feeding it. Like, yes, like there's extenuating circumstances, but I think from game one, that really kind of does make it feel like, okay. And I relate to this because, again, I know what it's like when on paper your team should be doing so much better than it is. So I'm wondering if that is really reduce the amount of patience people have for Shanahan.
Probably. I mean, I'm giving a lot more grace, I feel, than a lot of other fans, because it's like we went from a super dynamic defense that was putting the offense in the best situations, and his offense, which was firing on all cylinders with his crazy edge attack, and now defenses are kind of catching up. So he has to adapt now, and he hasn't really fully adapted yet. Um, but I feel like the thing that everyone's kind of skipping over is that we have a brand new defensive coordinator
Hmm.
who is inexperienced. This is his first year, and you see it in that very first game. They caught back because he didn't know how to make adjustments, and he's still struggling with it. So far, his best game I thought was against the Cardinals because of how well the defense came
Yeah.
along and how he play called that.
Yeah, I
Because
mean, you guys did a good job of limiting the Cardinals. I think that was probably like their
yeah,
lowest. Yeah, but it's like I do see a lot of parallels between you guys and the Rams, where it's just, and I'm curious to see if he can turn it around.
Mhm.
Like, I'm sure if we had Tyler here, he'd be saying, "Of course he's going to," because Tyler's ever the optimist for the Niners. But it is one of those. It's, I don't know if he's really proven that consistency, so to speak.
I think he can, and he will, depending on
Yeah,
if
I'm sure he can. I'm saying,
we.
like, has he though?
Yeah,
It's still kind of unproven though.
yeah. I mean, the biggest issue he has is that consistency between the quarterback position and running back. Because we went through running back carousel last season, we're going through one this season.
Hmm.
If Mitchell can stay healthy, and if Sermon can make kind of a leap to match Mitchell in production, that'd be majorly beneficial because I know Sermon made a giant leap between like week 1 and week 3. As far as
Not
his
in
ability to
fantasy,
cut,
that's for sure.
yeah, no, definitely not there. But as far as within this game, realizing okay, make the one cut, get upfield.
Hmm.
That's the system I'm in, um, and also the quarterbacks being healthy.
Hmm.
Garoppolo's down. Lance might be down 2 weeks.
That's actually an interesting one because I deal with this a lot with the Vikings. Is a lot of excuses I see for how the Vikes form is like, oh, they were up, so and so was hurt, Barr was hurt all season, we had a lot of injuries, and this is my thought. Like the salary react to those guys is yes, injuries happen and then derail season, but if you are always having to deal with injuries at key positions over multiple seasons, then either A, something's wrong with your training conditioning program or something that's leading to a bunch of injuries, or B, you're not evaluating your talent in the sense that you keep on bringing guys who have injury histories. You're not recognizing the patterns. Like you don't have a bunch of freak injuries multiple times in a year consistently at the same position. That's just statistically that's not going to happen. So I'm curious to see you guys like this is what this feel like the third straight year you guys are down to like your third string running back.
Yep.
At what point do you go like, okay, maybe there's something more to it than just, oh, they keep getting hurt? Like, okay, well, why do they keep getting hurt? That's really weird.
Like it's a combination because I know basically Jimmy after basically he got hurt that one season, 2018.
Hmm.
Came back 2019 healthy. We go to the Super Bowl 2020 injured this season. So obviously he's starting that trend of injury prone. Kittle has been injured, I think, through college because I think he has a damaged ligament or tendon in one of his arms. That's why he always wears a sleeve. It's just if he were to get surgery, he'd be out at least one season.
Hmm.
And it's also why I think they put him on IR is to literally protect himself. Because otherwise he'd be like, I'm good, I'm gonna play with this calf contusion. Because that's
Yeah.
how he is. The dude scored a touchdown on a broken foot.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's I think we had that conversation a while ago about I can't remember who specifically, but it was a whole people cutting out when they're hurt instead of like playing through, and how like yeah, that used to be the mentality like, oh, you're hurt, you keep going.
yep,
But it's really people are like, no, it's better for your longevity and the team overall if you go, you know what, I need this one game isn't as important as the long term.
yep, that's the season. And that's how some of the I feel like some players are. Like Kittle for one. That's why he always gets hurt. That's why he's big for yards after catch. He's
Hmm.
not gonna go down unless they almost break his arm. Like
Yeah.
so yeah, he's prone to injury. I mean Bosa he came off of what, an ACL tear in college, forgoed his senior season, and then we drafted him.
Hmm.
I want to say this
I
year
don't remember
ACL
exactly.
MCL.
I don't remember exactly which one it was. I do remember, yeah, he got hurt, and well, that kind of goes back. Like, is it you're just taking too many chances on people who have injuries because of the upside? And if so, are you not paying for that? Like, are you rolling on? Are you gambling on too many players? I wonder.
Yeah, that's what I feel like it is because a lot of our key players they're injury prone.
Hmm.
You got Bosa, who I feel like is kind of keeping himself healthy now. Um, he's not necessarily putting himself into as much harm. Kittle came up as an injury, permanent one, till he gets the surgically fixed. Garoppolo started to become injury prone. Even when they brought in Sherman, D Ford has like a chronic back problem. So a lot of the key contributors we have outside of, I say, Tart and Ward and the safeties, and a couple of the kind of third and understring defensive linemen. Most other people have like injury history.
Hmm. Yeah, and that I mean that does kind of fall on that's going to fall on your coach and your GM because they're the ones who are really making those personnel decisions. So But if people aren't criticizing him for that, then like, yeah, it does feel kind of nitpicky. Like, I mean, but it is interesting though how, in many ways, guys are starting to follow the same pattern that either you guys are at a crossroads, and you either go like the Rams, where like you guys can kind of are still perennials, or you go the Vikings, where you guys just never moving up but it's always just enough that nothing ever really changes because there's always enough like ways you can explain it. So hopefully you guys go this way because you don't want to end up like the Vikings.
Fair. And really, I really just I'm gonna watch every game. Of course, I want to see how the season goes because they're taking an entirely different route than say Arizona and the Rams. They're kind of on the up.
Mhm.
Um, but they're on the up because they hired experienced defensive coordinators, experienced coaches who've been in the league, who've been head coaches. They were brought on,
Mhm.
whereas the Niners hired within, kind of picked up this like assistant coach. Hey, we're going to move you up into a coordinator, as opposed to hiring experience, which
Yeah.
I'm wondering on if we would have benefited more from. But at the same time, it's like, okay, this is something new. These guys failed as head coaches for a reason.
I mean, I honestly think though actually that that getting the veteran is better because here's the thing: is someone can be a great coordinator and a terrible head coach. Like there's
And
quite a
Quinn,
few people like where yeah, Dan Quinn, he's doing great as a coordinator. What is it Rex
Vance
Ryan? I think it is
Joseph,
Vance Joseph, Leslie Frazier. Like, I mean, basically, like half of the Lions' past 5 coaches, they're all much better coordinators than they are coaches because that way they're just focused on that one aspect. They're not having to make a lot of the other decisions that can distract you. And they also, because they already were a head coach, they already failed. That almost reduces the odds that they'll, leave you for a head coaching gig soon. It kind of extends that window. So that's kind of the downside of trying to develop someone is that increase the odds that if he starts doing well, you're gonna have to replace him again soon, a lot sooner than probably if you did bring in a veteran. So which solution is better, like I understand the pros and cons of each one, but I am curious to see how things would have been if you guys had brought in an experienced former coach instead, because there's always so many of them. Because man, there's
same.
always roster sure.
Yeah, I know why they did DeMarco's an easier transition with the pieces you have. If you brought in someone experienced, they're gonna want to run their system,
Mm.
and the only guy that's experienced with that system, I think, is like Dan Quinn.
And
And
he's
even
old.
he runs a completely different system now. He's
Mm.
apparently changed it because when I was watching one of the games, they mentioned an interview they did with him, and he said, "Yeah, this is completely different. You're not getting the system I ran in Seattle or in Jacksonville. Um, I've changed, so that's good. You need to do that,
Yeah.
but." Like, I understand why they went internal, but it also sucked because Saleh made his name as a coordinator at that point. He can hold it down. He got his um, like halftime changes, the play calling, like they're on point,
Yeah.
and now he's gone.
Yeah.
Which
And
I remember the first 3 years, people were calling for his head.
I mean, and did you feel bad for him? Because man, of all the organization take over, he took over what was the second worst one next to the Browns up until recently. Which I mean, props
Yeah,
to the Browns because say what you will, that dude deserves a hell of a lot of credit for what he's done with that organization, from league laughing stock to playoff contender. And yeah, it took some growing pains, but he's done a solid job. It's really weird.
yeah. No, it's been weird watching the Browns and like, oh, they might win this game.
Mm-hmm. Seeing the Browns as a favorite, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, in the division. Since we're getting away from that, we can kind of talk about the rest of the league then. We can start with them. The Browns Chargers, because that was a crazy game.
I wish I could have watched it.
Yeah, 47-42.
I didn't watch much games. We had a lot going on this weekend, but I mean, ignoring the fantasy implications about how I'm still mad that Mike Williams hogged all the points from Keenan Allen. I mean, it does seem like things are starting to click for the Chargers, at least offensively. They're still struggling on defense, but they're a team that they've just felt so close for so long. And I'm glad I want to see it finally click for him again.
I'm still waiting for the Chargers to be the Chargers.
Yeah, which is totally fair.
Uh, and I mean, that game felt like what's worse, the Browns or the Chargers, as far as beating themselves.
Yeah,
Just fun on its own, but like it was great for fantasy.
Oh yeah.
I got Eckler in like 3 places.
Yeah, to start on my fantasy team. They were first few weeks they were great, but the last 2 they have just been underperforming. I lost on a blocked field goal. Did you
Did
do
you
that in
have
fantasy?
a?
No. Jonathan had the Ravens defense. He was
Oh,
behind me,
we got points.
and then he got the 3 points from the blocked field goal, which gave him a 2-point victory. Because also they won the coin flip in overtime. Because I still don't. I hate the league overtime rules. It's so stupid to me that a team can make it to overtime and never get a possession. Like they really need to adopt the college system. I think it'd be a lot better.
Yeah, I wonder if there'd be an increase in injury though too.
If they did the college system, I don't think there would be. Because so the way the college one works is they just started a new method where it's basically each team gets a possession from like the 25-yard line, for, like us, their opponents. So they have 25 yards to get a score, and then they go, and then each team gets a possession. That's the first overtime period. Then they do it again. Then eventually it escalates to the point where you have to try, like you can't do PATs. You have to go for 2, and it just like keeps like getting more restrictive until, and then after like a few rounds of those, if it's still tied, then it just becomes okay. Do 2-point conversions. Each team takes a shot at 2-point conversions until someone misses.
Okay, so basically they picked up like a shoot off method,
Yeah,
kind of in soccer.
yeah, exactly. Which at least that way every team has a shot.
Yeah,
It's no longer decided by the coin flip.
yeah, and I mean, it felt like that game did come down to the coin flip.
As soon as the Ravens got it, I was like, "Oh, they're gonna win," because of the way they've
Yeah,
been running all over them.
and that's like where that injury came into, from at least like it from where I was watching, because I think that was their slot corner, and he got replaced with a rookie. At the same time, I don't know what the defensive coordinator is doing, not putting someone kind of in that underneath zone, and he just kept running zone.
Yeah, but also like they were just, their defense was tired. Like they were picking up like 7 yards per run, and when you're giving it 7 yards per run, it's just a matter of time till you get a touchdown.
Yeah. That was nuts though. I have Lamar Jackson on another team, and it's got elevated points, so he got me like 51.
Yeah. Oh jeez.
But I went against him too, which was painful on its own, and it's literally the reason I lost. That and Rodrigo getting hurt, because I had their kicker, Colts kicker.
And Wilson, man, getting hurt after only giving me 10 points.
Yeah.
That was rough.
Which we can move into that one.
That's
But
a
it was funny
big injury.
Yeah, I didn't realize how big it was watching the game. Because they said he dislocated his finger. So I'm like, oh, just put it back and keep playing.
Yeah, it did not look like a dislocated feet. Even when he first hit it, like the reason why, like when you first saw the very first clip, it's the tip of his thumb was bent basically facing downward. I'm like, that looks like more than dislocation.
Yeah, see, I didn't see the injury. I just heard the report on it.
Mm,
So I'm like, okay, well, it's a big deal. And then the game ended, so I watched, the final 2 minutes, and Gino was in, and Stafford dislocated his finger, put it back in place, kept playing. I'm like, why didn't you do the same thing? And then the next day, the report came out where he just
yeah.
destroyed the ligament. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
there's nothing
yeah.
holding it in place.
Nope. Which makes sense. Like why the thumb was all curled up like it was. Yeah, that's. I mean,
Yeah,
they've been struggling. Like they've had injuries, and they were struggling. But that right there, pretty much, that's a season ender. Even if he gets back in 6 weeks, I just.
yeah. So the funniest comment I think I saw on Twitter was, "Let him go. Let Wilson go. It's Gino's time. Let Smith run the team. We're going to the playoffs." And I'm just like, I
I
doubt it.
I admire the optimism.
I do too. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Without Wilson, that team I think is going to just fall apart
Mm-hmm. Oh
because he
yeah.
extends those plays.
Yeah. Well, and also didn't hurt that both Lockett and Metcalf have both. They have seemed like they haven't been 100% healthy every game. Like not like major injuries, but they've been on
They're banged
injury
up.
reports. Yeah, and between them not being 100% and missing Wilson, that's your offense, especially because also Carson's hurt. He missed the last game,
Yep,
so there go your that's your offense right there.
it is. And I don't know. I got a feeling that if the season doesn't go well, I could see Pete Carroll dip off, like retire.
I could see him going for one more year,
Yeah,
just because here's the reality. This is the downside when you're a team that is playoff bound, but you're always missing something. Is because then you end up picking like the middle bottom part of the round. So this almost kind of helps them because they still have a lot of really solid pieces.
yeah,
So honestly, go like, okay, you know what? So we pick and like, let's say we pick top 12 this year. Use that to rebuild the team. Bring in some of those missing pieces, some younger guys to replace the people who are always hurt, and then give another run. But it also depends on how well they do with Gino.
yeah. And see them do okay with Gino because he has similar skill sets. He was a first round pick. He did play decently with the Jets, but there's a factor that Wilson gives them that I don't think Geno Smith can give them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those like crazy plays that he throws in these super tight windows on the move because their offensive line fell apart.
Yeah, it's the Mahomes effect.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen people who are critical of Mahomes. The reality is like that dude does things that, honestly, I would say even Tom Brady can't do. Like there's
But no
few
one
people
else
can
can do them. Like during the Super Bowl, even though they got beat down, like the guy was literally falling.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
and
that one where he's like totally vertical in the air and he's still
yeah,
dead
and
fast.
hugs the ball, and it was still like the guy dropped it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, there's like maybe two other people who can do that.
yeah, if you could find a quarterback who can throw an accurate ball while his entire body is not planted and he is horizontal,
Yeah.
that's special.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could transition to that game because that was a game.
It's a humdinger.
Yeah, it was.
Which funniest bit about that to me was I have the Bills defense, I think, in 2 out of 4 leagues. And I just didn't want to drop them. I didn't want to lose them because they've been
they've been solid.
Hot. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll keep them. Whatever happens, happens. Hopefully I win despite them. And they still pulled off. I need to pull it up. Because literally the week before was 22.
Because they had the pick six, they had another interception. So yeah, they probably got you at least like 15 to 19 points, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah. I want to say it was 14.
I mean, a lot of people going like, oh, it's his contract. It's sometimes like, no, it's the Super Bowl hangover, man. This happens to this happened to every team except for 5 in the history of the league. This has happened to him.
I mean, not only that, but I'm also curious. Like, I have my own little theory as far as Andy Reid goes. Like, he had major ups and downs, like with Philadelphia. Like, he hit NFC championships, hit a Super Bowl, and then just kind of dove down until they just let him go, which I thought was dumb at the time, definitely, because he's an amazing coach. But I wonder if he's doing kind of the same right now. Where he needs to retool, but is kind of refusing to right now.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see about that. Because, let's see. Because I remember I was actually looking at this. Let me pull it up. I looked not too long ago. It's like, while he did have ups and downs, his downs really weren't that
They weren't
bad.
that bad.
And and then especially once he moved to Kansas City, his downs have been not bad at all. Let me pull it up. So,
I think
when he was with Philly, he had 5 straight seasons over 11 wins, and then he had a 6 win, 10 win, 8, 9, 11 win, 10 win, 8 win, and then he hit a 4 win, and that's when they cut him. And it's like, yeah, he had one where he made it to the NFC Championship. And then there's also I believe a Super Bowl. Oh yeah, that was a Super Bowl appearance. So he had multiple playoff seasons. It just that was the only time he went there. And I think that was more just a Schottenheimer style thing. Where you had a lot of great seasons, you were never really getting to that next level. Because also look at Kansas City. He really had the same thing until he got Mahomes, where they were always
right there,
but always knocked out. And if there was a fault, I'm curious if he just hasn't done enough to beef up their defense and offensive line. Which, granted, that's hard to do when you're picking second to last, because they need really to rebuild that O line. That O line really cost them the game, the Super Bowl.
Yeah, which is funny because everyone was saying, "Oh, they got an improved O line." It's like, well, no, we talked about that before the season started. It's like it's a bunch of other old veterans.
Yeah,
that's basically just plug and play, and they're gonna struggle.
Yeah,
but well, they're their destination now. Like they're like Tampa Bay, where it's like, okay, we're gonna compete for a Super Bowl every season, so they're probably gonna get their pieces through free agency.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and also people can talk about Mahomes' big contract, but it's also he already restructured once to be extended out, so it wasn't as burdensome. Because he at least seems to realize hey, the more money they have available, the better team they can put around me. And so it seems like he at least learned that lesson early enough that he's not going to sink them with his major contract.
Yep.
Possibly. And that's where I was like, I just don't see how you can hold this season against him. It's
you can't. At least not entirely, but you got to break it down to what it comes down to, which is kind of the defense giving it up. And they've been kind of known to have an on and off defense to begin with. And then he's making those dynamic plays, but it's like they're not just being executed.
Yeah.
They had a lot of drops in that game.
Just something seems off.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, I think that's
hangover.
That's what happens. Yeah, it's just there's always sometimes the old season gets derailed for no good reason. It's not like an injury or anything. It's just something's off, and you can't control that. I mean, you're kind of seeing it with Tampa too, where it's like even though they were the champions, they're favorites, they still have not looked as dominant as they did last year. And you can say oh well, they've had a lot of injuries to their secondary. Their pass rush hasn't been getting it done as much. Really, the only thing that's really carried over is their O line is still giving Brady time to make the plays. But their defense on all phases just isn't firing as well as they are. Their run game's pretty much non-existent. If it weren't for their O line, I don't even think Brady would be doing as well.
Yeah, and they're probably one injury to that O line away from losing a few games because
If their center gets hurt, I think their season gets derailed real quick because he
I
is
can
the
see that.
anchor of that team, of that line.
Because that Dolphins game was close for a bit.
Hmm.
The Dolphins were even ahead for a little while. Again, that's a game I kind of wish I saw because just out of nowhere, checking the ticker, Bucks just kind of took off. So I'm sure the defense stepped up, or just the offense took off. More than likely,
Yeah.
the offense, because I think I got points from Mike Evans on that one.
That one I didn't watch.
Oh wait,
There's
yeah,
also
Brady threw like 5 touchdowns, if I'm right.
yeah. Oh yeah, he went off. But I mean, like Brissett did 275 for 2 touchdowns and an interception. That's not
Yeah,
bad,
no.
especially
They
for
can
the
have a
team that
running
struggled.
game though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Matt Gaskins at 25 yards.
but he did have 10 receptions for 74 yards and those 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, jeez.
Damn,
But that's also what it was like when your leading receiver is also your running back.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
That means they're
Which I mean,
taking away everything over the top, or that pass rush got through.
well, but I also think I can't remember his name. I think is hurt. Uh, basically one of their better receivers, I believe, is also hurt.
Devontae Parker.
Yeah, that's it. Parker's hurt.
Yep, he's not even on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I mean. I'm still like, I mean, yeah, the Bucks are sitting at 4-1, but I wouldn't say they're a strong 4-1 right now because it's
And it,
yeah. I mean, well, like they got blown up by the Rams, and then they almost lost to the freaking Patriots, man.
yeah. I mean, the Patriots, they almost lost to the Texans.
Yeah, the next, which I mean, that could have been one of those hangovers where, like, because that I imagine was an emotional game for them, but still, the Super Bowl champs almost lost to the Patriots. So either A, Belichick still could do wonders with nothing, or B, they're not as strong as they were.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think it's a combination of both.
that's fair. And there's a lot of teams that I'm still not sure about. Like, they're still up and down. Let's see.
Yeah,
I mean,
even
hey, I was gonna say, let's just go into your next point. The Bengals, and that's a good example. Yeah.
Oh, that game frustrated me to no end because it's like the Bengals had it, but you just couldn't keep Rodgers out of it.
But also at the same time, when it took 3 straight misses by Mason Crosby, Mr. Made 27 in a row, did you really have it, or is it just the Packers were having a rough time?
I feel like it was a little bit of both because the Bengals could have put it away too with a field goal and their kicker missed.
Yeah.
So it's like they put themselves in position to win too, but they couldn't do it.
Well, and that's still one of those. I mean, I know a lot of people were really high on the Bengals offense, like, oh, they're gonna like. I'm still like, yeah, they have flashes, but Burrow still seems. I don't know if like reckless gunslinger, but it still just seems like it's not clean. It's a Jameis Winston style where it's like, yeah, he can go off, but he's just likely to throw
Puts
like
it in danger.
Yeah, 2 interceptions.
Yeah,
and I think that's really hurting them. I was because they have like freaking Boyd. The fact that Boyd, who was
like
just to get like 100 yards, he's like their 3rd or 4th best. Yeah.
Yeah. They have a great receiving core.
Oh yeah. And then the running back stable, like Mixon's. Is it still Mixon? I think it's still Mixon.
Yeah, but I think Mixon got hurt. He got hurt during the game because it was Perrine who took over.
Oh, that's right. It was Perrine because they lost. Because they got rid of Bernard.
Yeah, which honestly, Perrine's very serviceable. He's had some big games for them.
And it's like Bernard's been blown up with the Bengals, so I don't think they're missing him too much. It's still the.
I mean, he got hurt, so.
Yeah. But even when he wasn't hurt, because I had him on my bench and he never did squat, it was still always Jones and Fournette.
Yeah, they run that 3-back system. He'll be lucky to get a touch.
Yeah. But I mean, like, this is why I said, like, with all the comments around the Packers, you can't count the Packers out. It's like, yeah, they haven't looked dominant, but they've still won. The only game that really looked bad was the Saints game. They looked absolutely awful. But since, I mean, yeah, okay, they beat the Lions, they beat the Steelers, which up until this week, everyone's like, oh, that's not a good win. But Steelers just looked pretty good.
Yeah, against the Broncos. I don't know if just something clicked, or I feel like than the other. I feel like the Broncos probably weren't as prepared as they should be. With the
I think
Steelers
it's a
defense.
combination of both because it's, again, it's we can every year we always say, oh, Big Ben's not the guy he was. But every year,
Halfway through the season, 4,000
yep,
yards.
yeah, it's a lot of those old guards are still have enough left in the tank to at least be in the hunt for the playoffs, even on a team that really shouldn't be. Because that's really what why they're still the leader of their team is because they still have the potential to put the game on their shoulders and carry the team to a win. It's just they don't do it as consistently as they used to.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the first game statistically that looks good for the running game.
Yeah.
For them.
Oh yeah, who cares? Like 23 for 122.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else was on there? We got. I mean, I think that category of like, there's a lot of teams that could be. There's still a lot of teams that could be good, could be bad. I was honestly expecting a lot more clarity by this week, and I still don't think we have clarity. I really don't think we do.
I don't think we do either. Because even hopping over to, so yeah, I mean, I kind of just pick one. Eagles Panthers for one.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they were without Christian McCaffrey, but I expected the Panthers to pull it off. Like,
Yeah. Well, and Chuba Hubbard still had 100 yards.
Yeah, he still did well. Chuba Hubbard. But I mean, just Jalen Hurts rushing for 2 touchdowns and making it tough. And it seems like the Eagles defense stepped up, 3 interceptions on Darnold.
Yeah. I mean, Darnold had been looking great up until that game. Oh, no, I guess last week he also didn't look as strong. Let's see.
I mean, I also heard that like one of the corners got in contact with one of the Cowboys corners and asked him for tips.
Oh, one of the Eagles corners?
Panthers. Yeah. He's like, as much as we may not like it, I did do this and paid off.
Yeah, seems to have worked out.
Yeah, so.
Well, it's same like, I mean, a lot of people are ready to write off the Saints, and then they just went off against Washington football team.
Yeah, which that one was close for a bit. But, I mean, Jameis throwing 4 TDs, having 1 interception. And then Heineke didn't do much.
Yeah.
My fantasy reflected it.
The reason why he's still not quite a lot of people's number one. I will say that Dewar has been probably the biggest surprise of the season, though. More than any other, is Cordarrelle Patterson. That dude. Like, I'm happy to see him finally find a role. Because, like, I remember when the Vikings drafted him, he was great for kick returns, but not much else. They went to the Bears, and the same thing. Like, they almost have him doing like he's a Taysom Hill who's doesn't throw, where he's that kind of gadget player. They
running back, wide receiver, punt, kick returner.
Yeah, and
it's like that. Yeah, they're kind of using him the same, but they're being a lot more effective with him.
Yeah, well, it's because the Bears always seem to try to have him be a running back first, catcher second. When the dude really isn't, like, he's still definitely receiver first. That is where his strength was. He's a speed guy. Get him out.
Seeing him run out of the backfield.
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing. It's like, just get the ball to him. They're doing what they always tried. The Vikings always tried to do with him. That's really what it is. It's. Oh, hang on. Sorry. One of the videos on NFL just started playing. It was weird. This is what the Vikings always tried to do with him. Was that kind of like that gadget, move him around, get him on the outside, and just let his speed do it. They just were never able to pull it off. I think that was more a coaching scheme thing, not like anything on him. But
Yeah,
the Falcons are doing what everyone's always tried with him, and it's working. Whether it lasts the whole season, we'll see.
yeah. But I
I
mean,
mean,
like it. They kind of held him back here. He was the leading rusher by a yard, but then they had Kyle Pitts to worry about, who went off.
yeah,
Thankfully, because I got him a couple spots. 119 yards, one touchdown. Like,
yeah, that was a beefy game, is what that was.
and then, I don't know. I just feel bad for the Jets.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, I'm like,
They're competing more now, which is great. But
yeah, like it's funny. It's like the ill will I have towards Zach Wilson isn't necessarily that he went to BYU because, like, I know he wanted to be a Utah player. It's just the kid was so damn smarmy about it that it's nice to see his ego get knocked down. That, and also it's like everyone was so high on the kid. Talk about, oh, he's going to be the next best thing. Gonna be great. I'm like, guys, you really got to temper your expectations because he did it against. He essentially, it was the equivalent of beating up the 2000s era Jets Bills. What you call it?
I
With
remember.
most,
I mean,
yeah, the teams they played last year at BYU were not a lot of good teams.
yeah, it's like an NFL team playing just some farm AAA team.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why. So it's. I am glad to see that there's a reality check for both Wilson and also people who were also high on him. That's not to say I don't want to see him succeed. Like, I'm fine with he does. It's just you guys got to temper your expectations about some of these folk.
There's not much there, and then hey, your Vikings pulled off a win.
I mean, I'm not trying to call that game a win. I really wouldn't. Like, it's I don't. This is, you see this on like all the Vikings threads. Like, they're very, at least they're divided. So it's not all, but there's so many people talking like we won, a win's a win, blah blah blah. Like, no, guys, that was not a win. You should be happy about. We really could have just as easily lost that one, and it's, yes, this time the kicker won the game with his kick. It shouldn't keep coming down to the kicker.
Now, you shouldn't be put in those positions, but the real winners are the people who played Alexander Madison.
What have I said
PPR.
every year? Always, always, you draft
Yeah,
Madison because
yeah, Cook.
he will get a shot.
Yeah.
And the dude takes advantage of his chances. Really, the only thing that's hurt me, though, is that Jefferson took all the catches from Thielen. Because he literally had 0 catches up until the very, very last drive. He got 2 catches. So he got like 6 points.
Better than nothing, but
It was real close to being nothing.
dang.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, at one point, he was projected to finish with 0.76 points.
Yeah, that hurts.
Yeah. And I mean, that's actually like a lot of things I've been commenting on. Like, he hasn't even really been targeted, which is surprising. It's like, I mean, yeah, I understand that they don't have Smith, they don't have Rudolph to like kind of relieve some of that pressure, but you still have Madison, you still have Jefferson. Osborne was a capable receiver. It's you can't just blame it on the lack of other targets for why you're not utilizing Thielen or other stuff. It's the team is just dysfunctional. That's I really, really hope they get rid of Zimmer and Spielman because I'm sorry. Zimmer would probably be a pretty great defensive coordinator, but he is not a good head coach.
Yeah, I can see that. Also, I think part of that's on Cousins because I feel like Cousins gets certain matchups a game, and he just keeps forcing it to whatever receivers matched up on whatever corner. As long as they win it like once, twice, maybe 3 times, it's done. He's going there.
Yep. And he either forces the ball or he just does checkdowns. Like, people always talk about, oh, he has a really great completion percentage. Like, yeah, when all your passes are majority like 3 to 5 yard checkdowns, Of course, you can have a good completion percentage. You better. If you don't, I'm worried. but like the thing, like it's not even like a good example is Anthony Barr. When he's healthy, he can be a great player. Problem is, he's never healthy, and even when he is healthy, he isn't always playing at the level he should be. But they invested a lot of money. They gave him this big extension, and the dude just barely saw the field in like almost a year and a half. It really does seem like it's because Zimmer really loves Barr, and so he's like keeps on bringing back. But it's like this point, they should have just gotten rid of him. Because what I can't remember what his contract is. Hang on, let's see.
Something overpaid.
Well, for the amount of playing time he sees,
Ooh.
so he's making. Looks like so his cap hit this year is $6 million. His total cost is $8 million for someone who hasn't played in almost a year and a half.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a waste of money.
Yep. Especially considering he hasn't played a full season, I think, since like maybe his first year. It's been a long time since he hasn't missed at least 1 or 2 games. Like if you averaged out like per game, he's probably making 10 to 15 million. Yeah, and that's what it is. It's they always have people hurt. Their O line. I mean, even okay, they drafted Darasa as their top O line player. The dude just finally saw the field because he was hurt.
Dang.
And they still have freaking the Dozier, I think it is. I can't remember if it's Dozier or Danzler. I think it's Dozier. Like a guy who was consistently rated as the worst guard in the league. Not only was he still on the team, he even started some games.
Oh man. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, it's just for what they have, they should be blowing out the Lions, but they're not because all sorts of reasons.
They should, and I mean, kind of to the Lions' credit, they're not terrible, and they're fighting in every game.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they got to figure out how to win, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, when I saw it was like still like 14-7, well into the third quarter, I was like, "Oh, the Lions are going to pull this off."
Yeah.
Oh. The foosball.
Which I think there's just 2 more. Chicago and the Raiders, which the Raiders going to be. They're probably going to go back to being the Raiders, honestly.
Yeah.
The kind of hit you get with losing your head coach to scandal like that.
I'll be actually intrigued because it's also one of those. Like, I wonder if Gruden would just get in their way.
Yeah, that's true. I'm curious about that. I don't know if they pick themselves back up and take off.
Well, and also like their next, so they're at Broncos, home with the Eagles, at Giants before they are host the Chiefs. That's a manageable 3-game stretch. So they could conceivably use that as like, okay, hey, let's like you said, pick themselves up. That's a very good slate to try to turn things around. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they do actually, I think, improve from the situation. But then again, they could also just keep on raiding. Who knows?
Yeah. And I think the funniest situation right now, one of them at least, is the Bears, because I still see a lot of like Twitter chatter and like just online chatter about just get rid of Nagy still.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, he probably should. He's not
helping.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I feel like at this point. But it's like Fields had a good game. He shook off those jitters with his first start. 111 yards, 1 touchdown.
Yeah, but like, man, they got a brutal stretch coming up. They're home against the Packers, at the Bucks, home against the Niners, at the Steelers, home against the Ravens. That's going to be a trial by fire for Fields right there.
Yeah,
Depending on how that 5-game stretch goes, I think will determine if Nagy's gone by the end of the year or sooner. Like if they aren't at least competitive and win one, maybe two of those, I could see him being gone sometime this year.
which I'm gonna touch the Niner Cardinal game just for a second too, because of Lance's first start, 192 yards a pick.
Mm.
And it was literally right after. So after every game, I get notifications on Facebook that the Niners are live. Kyle Shanahan, is addressing the media. And then they'll bring in players, address the media directly after the game. Literally, like one of the first comments I saw on there was like, basically, why take Trey Lance when you can take Justin Fields? And you're like, you should take Fields. It's like he still had a better first game.
Yeah,
and it was his first game.
And honestly, I didn't fault you guys for going for Lance. Like I have long I've been pretty vocal about my skepticism of OSU quarterbacks, and so far Fields hasn't really showed enough to prove me wrong. I think so.
Yeah,
and the other thing is like, I mean, Lance. We have a pretty good example of someone who's that talented playing at a smaller school doing really well in Josh Allen. Dude played at Wyoming. He was just as like highly touted against allegedly weaker competition as Lance was. Working out pretty well for Josh Allen. So I think Lance was probably the better option than Fields. For that very thing. It's like he has a chip on his shoulder. He has more to prove. So I think he's more likely to try to work hard to prove everyone wrong.
Yeah, I mean, he's already proven some of it. Like, they have logs. In the offseason, he was by far the guy who spent the most time on his team-issued tablet to go through the playbook. He spent the most amount of time reading the playbook. So the dude's given the effort. Yeah. I think he's going to be successful, but I think like Josh Allen took him 2 seasons. Took him at least 2 years. His third year, he had to break out, and he's kind of keeping it up. I think it's going to be a similar situation where it's going to take him a minute, because he even said, like, I'm not used to this. Mm-hmm. Like, the crowd cheering for him when he comes out onto the field, he's like, I'm not used to it. That's weird.
Yeah.
Right before he threw that first pick, he talked to Debo and was like, he was nervous. And it was Debo telling him, hey, get those jitters out. After he threw the pick, the media, whoever, the sportscaster who's always on the sideline, mentioned, like, I guess he ran over, fist bumped Debo, and was like, the jitters are out. And after that, he did play better.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he's got to ease into the game.
I mean, and also I think I'm curious to see if you guys try to do essentially what Buffalo did is you really look at when did things really start to turn around for Josh Allen was when they brought in Stefon Diggs. It's because then you guys had that, wide receiver one who was essentially like, you throw the ball his way, he's going to make plays. So, and that I think is a huge benefit to a rookie quarterback, where it's like that helps you build that confidence. Where it's like, yeah, the guys who don't want to work, that helps you go like, hey, I can do this. And then you start making other plays. Because not only does that, they draw a lot of attention. So then your other receivers are open. But also then you can start making a lot more plays and you feel more comfortable. And so I think if you guys can snag someone like that, that will really do a lot for him. It's a question of if you will or not.
Yeah, and I think that's what we were missing in that game was Kittle. Because Kittle's kind of that guy who will draw the additional coverage, and is also that big guy that you can kind of throw it up to, and he'll get it. Along with Deebo Samuel, because Deebo, he dropped one ball, but that was, even the announcer said that's rare for him, because he snags some crazy balls in his time. Joke unintended.
But oh so satisfying.
But yeah, but it's like he's literally wrapped around a corner before, snagged it in front of a corner, and went down with both. Like, he's a good wide receiver. He just needs to stay healthy, but he just doesn't have that height that like a Diggs has.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a good example, another comparison is like, yeah, Kittle helps, but it's kind of like you use the Chiefs. Kelsey's great and he's a reliable target, but when you have a guy like Hill, that's going to open up a lot of plays for your tight end because they are that person where like no one wants you to throw the ball to them because if you do, odds are they're making a play. And that's, I think, what you guys really need because then it opens up a lot more for Kittle because then people can't just like, oh, let's just double team Kittle. Jam him and then have someone like, maul him. That's a pretty effective way to take those kind of tight ends out. So that's really like, yeah, you guys need that tall, just like stud of receiver to really make those plays, to open up the rest of your game and, just help him build confidence, help him get used to the speed of the NFL.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's what they're hoping for as far as Debo. And I'm pretty sure that's why they've been playing Ayuk a little more because he's a speed guy, really good with the deep ball, and has that height that I think Debo kind of doesn't. But yeah, it's the Niners are just up in the air to me. I'll just see how they pan out, but it's exciting to see what Lance can do.
And like I said, I think you guys made the right choice. Like I remember telling Tyler, like I hope you guys don't go for Fields. I think that'd be the wrong move. And I still agree with that. I think out of all those top quarterbacks, you guys got one of the better options. Like, yeah, I'm sure Zach Wilson could have been good in your system, but I think Lance was probably the better choice. I really do. I think if you guys couldn't get Lawrence, you guys getting Lance, I think, was your next best option.
Yeah, after seeing some tape and everything else, I'm like, he's definitely more raw, but he's very dynamic. And he has a monster deep ball,
which is exactly what people were saying about Josh Allen. Like, yeah, he can sling it, but he's raw and accurate. But now we've seen what happens when Allen, cleans up his accuracy.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And we got one last game if we want to touch it. I was saving it for last, just in case Kimo was going to pop in. The Cowboys Giants, which we don't really have to say a lot about it because that's kind of what I expected. I even picked up Cowboys defense.
I mean, I think the only thing that was surprising was the Giants had some pretty major injuries that I think really derailed that. And I'm curious how that game would have progressed if that hadn't happened.
That's fair.
Because those were both and also I didn't watch it, but if I remember, I feel like those are early in too, where let's see.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Jones only had 13 attempts. Saquon only had 2 carries.
Yeah, let's see. And then at 10 all. So it's still and here's the thing, I will say I have been surprised by Jones. He has done a lot better this year than I was expecting. I still think he's going to be he's still not the guy necessarily, but he still has been very surprising for me.
Yeah.
Would you have to go with Mike Glennon?
Yeah. He had a great time. And with that, I'm wondering if it's issues with Jones because it looks like he scrambles a lot. That's why he's leading rusher. If it's issues with Jones or the team.
Yeah. He ducks his head so much.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah. I'm not surprised the Cowboys won, but I am curious to see how that would have gone if those key players hadn't gotten hurt when they had. Especially the players that they were. It's I understand teams get an injury to key player, but they lost their offense essentially in 2 injuries.
Yep. And then they lost their leading receiver of the game, yeah.
I can't remember who, because I know they had
he swung. He got kicked out.
Oh, he did? Okay, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, he didn't get hurt. He swung at a defensive player for the Cowboys and got ejected.
Wow.
This is a rookie receiver.
That'll do it. I wonder who. Let's see. I'm not sure it was. But it's also, so I love Devonta Booker. I loved him at Utah, but he just hasn't been as dominant guy at the NFL. So when I saw that, oh, he's their top rusher, they're in trouble. Although, man, that Tooney went off 10 catches for 189 yards.
Yep, he got ejected.
I mean, forget ejected. That's still a pretty impressive stat line.
Oh yeah, they even said like it was his coming out party, and they were like, then he got ejected. Cut short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still interested about the Cowboys because, well, they have looked good. It's still just one of those like I'm still not sure. I'm still I don't
Same.
know. I don't. But honestly, I feel that about most league. Really, it's
Yeah.
you had the point of like, oh, division shaping up, top 10. I thought we'd things would be a lot clearer by week 5, but they really aren't.
Oh, and even like I put that as one of the topics, and we kind of gloss over the next week and kind of play some fantasy matchups. But like the top 10, it feel like they're there. They're not really dominant though.
I mean, the only one that has really felt dominant has been the Bills. Really, it's like yeah, they
Yeah.
had the week 1 loss to the Steelers, but there was a lot of weird week 1 losses we've seen. So, and they have gone on a tear since then.
Yeah, after that, it's like any game they should win, they've won. There's no
Yeah.
question if they should win. They dominated it, 40-0 against
Yeah.
Houston, and then they did everything they needed to against the Chiefs to win. Mahomes is going to be Mahomes. He's going to make some crazy plays. Like that's going to happen, but they still won.
Yeah. Well, and that's also it's. I mean, you also have the Cardinals. They still so far still feel like they are one of the top teams because it's like other than the Vikings game, they haven't really like it was a close game against the Niners, but that's a division game. That's going to happen. There are other games like they dominated what looked like one of the top teams in the Rams. They straight up blew them up. You know, they blew up the Rams after the Rams blew up the Bucks.
Yeah, which I liked that it was 37-20. So I'm guessing it was a garbage time touchdown. I'd have to look at it, but I don't know. I don't know about the Cardinals. The Cardinals to me are a key injury away from just part.
Yeah,
and when I say key, I mean it revolves entirely around Hopkins.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's. I'm not saying that they will make it through, but right now, if you had to pick, like, okay, who is a team that actually is a top team? They are still like they're one of the few I would put up there.
Yeah.
Like I would still put. I'd probably put the Cowboys just by virtue of they have looked good in their wins, but I'm still not. I'm not necessarily sold, but it's same like the Rams where. I still would kind of put them up there. Just one of those, like, if they're not having an off day, they're still odds are good they'll still win their game. But beyond that, I'd say that's it, really.
Yeah.
All the other teams, I'm like,
That's how I feel about him. Like, the Chiefs are still in the top 10.
Yeah.
They've been struggling. It's like, yeah, most of these top 10 teams are like on paper, yes, they should be top 10 teams. The Packers, the Ravens, who have just squeaked out wins.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys look good. The Chargers are a coin toss.
Like I would still put them, like, I think out of all of the next in line to be in the top, with that group of few teams, I would put the Chargers at the top of that list.
Yep.
Just because, like, well, yeah, they've had some games that look as great that in the games they've looked great. They looked awesome. And so, like, I think out of that whole next group, I think the Chargers are the best team so far. Whether they charger it or not, we'll see. Like, that's actually why I think next week you got the Chargers and Ravens. That's going to be really interesting because those are that, like, I think, well, it does look like we're going to start seeing some separation because we're starting to see some of those
the better matchups.
Yeah. And then you're also like starting to get buys and stuff too. So teams will start getting healthy.
I could put my feet up next week.
I mean, I can too because we never get the Vikings games.
Which your next game might be interesting against the Panthers.
I think it's going to be a rough one.
Yeah.
Especially because not only it's against the Panthers, but it's a road game against the Panthers. Although there is some speculation, though, that they're actually going to keep Cook benched. Because, like, they're out. He's like, so he's still, like, he could have come back, but he's still kind of battling ankle injury. So it's one of those. Madison is still great. So that it's like, okay, why don't we just sit in one more game? That way, then he has 2 weeks plus the bye after that to get healthy.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a wise choice. Just because bringing him back too early isn't worth it when you have someone who's arguably just as good. Like, if they lose that game, it wouldn't be because they didn't play Cook. If they lose, they would have probably lost even with Cook.
Yeah. I feel like if the Vikings lose against the Panthers, it's because the Panthers played a better game, and because they couldn't get the passing game going. Because honestly, like if you guys get the running and the passing game going, you're perfectly fine. More the running game, I feel, just because of the way Zimmer is. But that one, I feel like could have the makings of being a little more high scoring, like combined, maybe at least 50 points.
Yeah. Like it's one of those. I think it's either I think it'll be a low scoring game, or one of the teams going to blow out the other. Actually, because what I think it'll be, because they both have defenses that when they're playing well, they can actually they're good. So, and they both have offenses that are easily derailed. So either I think both defenses will actually show up and derail both the offenses, and it's like a slugfest, kind of like what they just saw the Lions. Or the Panthers turn things around, the defense shut down the Vikings, and they blow them up. I am not confident that the Vikings shut down the Panthers and blow them up.
Fair.
But
I mean, that's true. And also, Panthers might get McCaffrey back.
Yeah, and that would actually be really bad for him.
Yeah, that would flip it pretty heavily in my eyes to the Panthers. All it tells me is I'm playing more, so.
I guess we should go. That's a good question. I don't know who is a good candidate for comeback player of the year this year. Mostly because a lot of people who were hurt have gotten hurt again.
Yeah. So far, the only ones that are still healthy is, let's say, Hubbard. He's playing really well.
Yeah.
Which will be put to the test against the Ravens, because that might be another shootout type game.
But I mean, didn't he get offensive rookie of the year last year?
Did he?
Was it last year?
But he got injured last season. He missed.
Yeah, but it's if you get offensive rookie of the year, can you really call it a comeback player of the year if you come back the next year, even if you got hurt?
I don't know.
Yeah, like to me, I don't think that should count. If you were one of the top players last year, you can't also be the comeback player the next year, because you only can be comeback players if you then do even better.
I don't know who else though. I mean, there's Bosa. He has 5 sacks on the season.
Okay. Yeah, like that one, I don't know, because I mean, there's a lot of players. I actually, who I could see being a strong candidate is actually Big Ben.
Yeah.
Because until proven otherwise, the guy somehow pulls it off. He ends up throwing for a bunch of yards.
Keeps you in the game.
Let's see. I'm just curious. What are who do they have as odds to win it? Let's see. Oh, that's actually a good point. Dak Prescott. He's probably going to be high up on that list.
I could see him leading it.
Yeah. Let's see who else. So he actually has the highest odds. It looks like, followed by Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold. By market, is this really like? Are these really all?
Um,
Let's see: Sam Darnold, Jameis Winston, Christian McCaffrey, Derwin James, Von Miller, James Conner. Yeah, out of all the people I see listed, I count like Devin Bush, Barr, Leighton Vander Esch, Wentz, Jimmy G. Yeah, like everyone else I see on this list would have to like just go off to really be a contender for it. So based on that, I would say it's probably going to come down to Dak, Joe, Darnold,
McCaffrey.
maybe Winston, maybe McCaffrey, or Big Ben, I think.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, here's what will be interesting, though. So, with the way they're playing right now, the Bills have a strong chance of being the top offense. Which, if they're smart, they better hope they don't. Because the last team, like the last time MVP won the Super Bowl, and there have been some great MVPs who have lost with some great teams. So if I were the Bills, I would be sitting there hoping that some other team just goes on an offensive tear and pulls that attention off of them.
I mean, I think it's still Rodgers. It was Murray, Rodgers. I feel like Wilson's always kind of an outlier, but still in the talks.
Right now, Josh Allen has the best odds according to Vegas.
Really?
It looks like. Yeah.
That's nuts.
For MVP.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been having a hell of a season.
I mean, all it's going to take is some matchups in Arizona's favor, and then it's Murray.
Yeah. Which that's what I think what they better hope for, because...
Yeah. But let's also be honest, the people who vote on this, they're a little biased, so it might come down to like Dak, Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers.
Like, honestly, if the Cowboys keep going the way they do, I think it'll be Dak getting both comeback and offense and MVP.
Yeah.
Which, again, I still think plays to the Bills' favor, because, again, that means they don't have that MVP curse to overcome. Because it's... I mean, yeah, I'm not a superstitious person, but they're just... The history has not lied that there's just something about being in those positions that just either derails your season, whether just because there's like, it's a sort of Damocles hanging over your head. There's just something about that makes you go, and then you stumble.
Yeah, you're right. With that, we can... Let's see. Let me try and blaze through next week.
Ooh, we're gonna have to blaze through these. Let's see.
Blaze.
We'll have to do it Kima style. So, Bucks Eagles.
Ravens. Oh, Bucks Eagles.
Yeah, isn't that the Thursday night game?
Oh, that's cool. Yep, that is Thursday night. I think I would take the Bucks.
Yeah,
but I think it's gonna be a slim margin.
I mean, the only reason why I don't think it will be is because while the Eagles have done well, I don't know if they're doing well enough to overcome the Bucks defense. And because even with their injuries, they're going to be able to pressure Hurts, and that's really what derails him. And
yeah, but it's also going to depend on if they can contain Hurts.
I mean, if you're getting to him fast enough, you don't have to contain him.
True.
And they have the guys to blow up that line. Yeah,
they do. They haven't been showing it.
Yeah.
So that's some flex by Slim. Dolphins, Jags. Yeah. If the Jags get the running game going, I think they can get their first win here. I think I'd give an edge to the Dolphins.
I would give the edge to the Dolphins. Like Brissett's been having great, but I would just, I think the Jags will pull it off. They've been close. They've been slowly improving enough. I think. I don't think they're going to end up winless this year. I think they'll win a game. They'll still probably end up being top pick in the draft, but I think this is a game they end up winning. Just a gut feeling. No good,
Same.
strong reason for it.
We
All right.
touched Vikings Panthers already. Took the Panthers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take Vikings because I'll show a little Viking faith.
At least one of us has that.
Yeah, called the faithful for the reason. Chargers Ravens.
That's I think the hardest to pick.
That it is because Chargers have a high flying offense. Their defense is good, and kind of like Indianapolis, they have a good defense, and they didn't have to be great to hold back the Ravens. But the Ravens still made it happen. So I think the Ravens probably take it though.
I think it's going to come down to the Chargers' rushing defense. I don't know how well they've done against the run, but if they can disrupt or slow the Ravens' run game, I think they'll win it because offensively they have it. Like offensively, they can go off just as good as the Ravens have. It's just a question of can their defense disrupt the Ravens more than the Ravens' defense disrupts them. That one I think is a coin flip.
Yeah.
I am leaning Ravens right now just because both sides there seem to be playing better overall.
Mhm.
But that's one of the games where I could see either team going off.
Same, and I take the Ravens because they have like Lamar threw the ball around in last week's game, so you could very easily do that against the Chargers, I think. So, I think they have an edge.
Yeah.
Rams Giants. That's gonna be the Rams.
Yeah, especially with the injuries that the Giants just had, I will be amazed if the Rams lose that.
Play all of your Rams players.
Yes. Which unfortunately I don't have any.
Well,
especially if you got the Rams defense. Whew, bet you they'll
oh.
Yeah. Without Barkley and Jones.
Scoop it.
Yep.
Glenn's gonna throw probably picks left and right.
Sweet.
Texans Colts.
Texan Colts.
Yeah.
Before last week, I would have said Colts handedly. After last week, not so sure. I'd still lean Colts, but it's I think a lot closer.
I lean Colts.
Yeah.
Let's see. Random question. Left field question of the week. My league, full PPR, gives points for return yards. Ooh, that's old school. Should I pick up Jamal Agnew since he's getting targets now, plus the Jags D to double up if he returns a touchdown? You have a free.
I see what you're saying. He's saying should he pick up Jamal Agnew and then paired with the Jags D, that way on the off chance he does get a return touchdown.
Yeah, double dipping. That was an old strategy I've used back when Deshaun Jackson was a young man with the Eagles.
That's ages ago.
Yeah, I pulled that off before. Yeah, it is a London game. I mean, it's a minimize the risk with anything like that, and I feel like it could be worth the risk.
I mean, yeah, so I just had to look it up because I haven't been following too. It looks like has the 5th most return yards. His average is the highest. I mean, obviously he has long. And he's one of 2 people to get a touchdown.
Yeah, and his targets are right now just on the uptick with Chark being out. So he's going to keep getting those targets. I don't know. I feel like that's probably a fair risk to take right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know because also it depends on who else is available. Like, look at this. If you have DeAndre Carter, Byron Pringle, or Andre Roberts, those are also good options.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're playing the matchup against Dolphins, so there's a question I have here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is probably a good chance to take. Because it's... I mean, realistically, let's be honest. If you end up losing a game because it comes down to the defense, because he doesn't have a good kick return game, that's not really going to be a deciding factor. It's more likely the defense gets derailed. So I think that's an upside choice. I mean, there's a good chance of that, especially because I'm sure Urban's going to want to try to change the narrative about things going on. So he might actually that's why I picked him on my gut. Is I think there's going to be enough there to make them at least try. So I think that's a good move to do, just because it's low risk, high reward. Would be the way I would view it.
Yep. Those I feel like are the best moves. Yeah. Low risk, high reward. It's you're playing a solid matchup. Mm-hmm. You can't really ask for a better situation to try this combo out.
Yeah. And especially, it's like if there's one position you can gamble on, it's going to be your kick returner, really. Like that's because it's such a gamble as it is. It's half the times they won't even get returns. You never know. Yeah, so.
And even you get yardage for return yards, or you get points for return yards, as you mentioned earlier. So yeah, if he's one of the top 10 in return yards, why not?
Yeah, if you can't pull Devin Hester out of a time machine, why not?
Point.
Let's see, who else? Who else do we have? Where were
Chiefs of Washington?
Washington Chiefs. Ooh. I would go with Chiefs just because they're still the Chiefs. And Washington has shown that they're mortal. But it's also, I think the Chiefs could put up a fight because their defense, and when things click I think when things click for them, they got a great team. It's just whether things will click for
them. No problem. Appreciate you watching. I kind of agree. The Chiefs have more going for him than Washington. Yeah. And also, like, even if boil it down to quarterback play, like, the only question mark I think the Chiefs have is if Williams can step up with Lair being out.
Mm-hmm. And has there been any update on his?
He's out a couple weeks. Last I checked, it was an MCL sprain.
Oh wow! I'm surprised it was only a sprain. That one looked.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be a lot worse. So I
thought at minimum he dislocated his knee.
Yeah, that was a gnarly hit. So I'm like, luckily I moved him to the bench.
Sprained MCL in his left knee.
Kick him off.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they're gonna have a hard time getting a running game against Washington. Washington has been fairly good against the run, and the other reason why I still don't think it's iffy is probably the strength of Washington defense is pressure, and as we've seen, pressuring Mahomes, especially this year, is how you win against them.
Yeah, especially with that speed rush coming from Chase.
Yeah.
Chase Young. Let's see. We got Packers, Bears. I take the Packers.
Yeah.
Even though they're in Chicago, I think it comes down to how Fields plays. But I know Nagy's not going to help him, so he's probably going to get sacked a few times, and it's probably going to the Packers' way.
Apparently, Rodgers' best win record against any team is the Bears.
So there you go.
He has a 0.8 win percentage against them.
Dang.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going Packers.
Bengals, Lions. That would actually be a fun game to watch.
Yeah. I would lean Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
But this also seems like a prime chance for the Lions to pull off a win.
Yeah. I can get behind that. I think the difference maker I feel is probably going to be Burrow versus Goff. Burrow is more willing to make those big plays than Goff is, and that might make the difference.
Yeah.
I'd probably go with Bengals.
Like I think it'll
Also,
depend on if Mixing or whoever the running back is right now, Perrin, can get going, because that
yeah.
takes a lot of pressure off of Burrow in their passing attack, and also whether Lions get theirs going back. 'Cause that also same thing where that takes a lot of pressure off Goff.
Yeah. So yeah, it might come down to who can get the running game going, or play the screen game. Like maybe
Yeah,
they run the ball more through Jamar Chase through screens, or even Boyd, or pick a player kind of thing. But
yeah. I mean, what's interesting about that one is like it's that's one of the games where even if you get out to a quick early lead, I wouldn't feel comfortable because both those teams are used to having to oh, we're behind, let's just throw the ball over and over, and they'll put up points. They've done that, so that's why I think it's who can actually win by tiring them out through the run game. That's why I think it's going to come down to that.
all right, yeah, it still comes down to running game.
Let's see what else we got.
Cardinals, Browns.
That's the afternoon
That
game.
that one would be a good one.
I would lean Cardinals.
I'm kind of leaning Browns. If I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. I hate him already. But if Baby Yoda over there is still suffering from an arm injury, because he injured his throwing arm against the Niners.
Oh, I was unaware of that. Murray.
Yeah, they worked on it throughout the game, and it showed because he underthrew a ball to Hopkins. Just Hopkins adjusted and caught it. I think that if he's still a little injured, and also because the Browns have a really good front line, front four,
Yeah.
they could give the Cardinals a run for their money.
Yeah. But I mean, also it's one of those.
Offense.
I could also the Cardinals have a pretty good defense this year. It's been playing well at least, and I could also see the Browns just having a hangover after that Chargers game.
Yeah,
because that had to have been an exhausting game, and especially not just that, but to then also lose that game.
Yeah.
So, but again, I could see that one. Again, I think either one of those teams could win that one. I wouldn't be that surprised by it.
Same. I wouldn't be surprised if either one wins. To me, it comes down to if the Browns can find any kind of exploit with their offense and get points on the board, I think they can win it.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. Let's see.
Cowboys, Patriots.
I mean, I've got to go with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
But the Patriots did show that I think things are starting to pull together for them.
Yep.
Maybe. I think that the game this weekend was more just a result of them being hungover from the Bucs game because of how close that one was.
Yeah, and really, I would have expected them to do a lot better against Houston. Yeah, that could be a game, just because the Patriots defense is pretty good.
It's still Belichick, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, as long as they can stop the run and eliminate big plays, they'll be in it. And the offense is just efficient. It's not like it's electric, but it's efficient.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They were able to limit the big plays of the Bucs better than basically anyone has this year. And while the Bucs don't necessarily have as strong of a run game, the Cowboys' run game hasn't been as strong as it has been in years past. So this is one of those things where it could just be the right matchup for them because the Cowboys really are kind of similar to the Bucs. The only difference is right now the strength of the Cowboys, I think, defense seems to be their secondary, whereas the strength of the Bucs is their D line. So that's, I think, what could be the deciding factor is can Jones protect the ball against the Cowboys secondary?
Yeah. I think I think the coordinator is probably I think they're gonna game plan and help him out a lot. and they have been. So they're probably going to take advantage of, depending on if the Cowboys still have Micah on the line, maybe the tight end matchups. Because Hunter Henry had a really good game last week. And I mean, they have Giannu Smith and Hunter Henry, so maybe they lean that way. Create space for the receivers.
Also, look at the injury report. I mean, also, and I think so. This was something that kind of played into what happened to the Patriots. Was they lost? They were down 4 of their 5 starting O line. Between like 2 of them were to injuries and 2 of them were to COVID.
Oh,
So I'm not sure. Let's see. 2 of them are still out as of the 9th. Their guard and one of their guards and tackles. But they did put one of their other tackles on IR. So that's, I think, could, if they can get those other 2 guys back, I think that will make a huge difference for them as well.
well, I mean, either way around, I still lean Cowboys, but
yeah, I mean, yeah,
just because the way they've been playing. But you got to get the Patriots a chance. Raiders, Broncos.
Either one.
Flip a coin.
Yeah. It's especially after the week the Raiders are having. Who knows how this is going to go?
Yeah. I'm going to take the Broncos.
That's the smart pick, I think.
Yeah, because I feel like adjustments would have to be made after the Raiders lost to the Bears, and Gruden's not there to make them.
Yeah.
They have to completely retool. They kind of lose some consistency, and the Broncos are still building up. So
yeah. The one thing is, I seem to recall hearing that. Oh no, I guess they have Bridgewater back this weekend. So I know he did have an injury, but yeah, I think that's the right pick. I'm surprised this game didn't get flexed to an earlier time slot. But Seahawks Steelers.
Steelers. I don't know. It could be interesting because you would think the Seahawks would run away with it with Wilson, but now that they have Geno, like,
that's why I'm surprised it didn't get flexed. Is after the Wilson injury, the NFL league could have.
That's fair. You could have swapped it for the Cardinals Browns, honestly.
Yeah, I mean Cardinals Browns, Chargers Ravens, Chiefs Washington. I mean, even Cowboys Patriots, I think, would have been a smarter one to flex right now, just because the Seahawks without Wilson just aren't the same team.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see still how Geno Smith plays, especially if he has weapons with Metcalf and Lockett.
Yeah.
And if the Steelers are able to just keep it together and pull off the win.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they're Seahawks secondary's porous, and they have a great passing attack. Yeah.
But the question is, how good is their passing attack? Oh, you mean the Steelers? Yeah.
Yeah, the Steelers.
Yeah. Well, so interesting though is Juju's out for the rest of the year now. So he had to get shoulder surgery, but they still have Claypool. So, yeah, I think Steelers take that, but it's going to come down to Geno. Can he do a good enough job imitating Wilson? But I wouldn't bet on that.
I wouldn't bet on it either. So I lean Steelers, which I'm fine with. Last one, Bills
Monday
Titans.
night.
Bills.
This one's interesting me because
Titans have had weird struggles.
Yeah, they have. That's why it's interesting to me. They went 2 straight years of seeming like just a really solid team to this year where they just haven't looked the same. And it's one of those. It makes me wonder if maybe like they're just it's not working as well. Tannehill's whole thing because you couldn't make bombs. He was still one of those it was screen game, checkdowns, bootlegs. That was really where he was finding a lot of that success. And then on top of that, like they brought in Jones, but they lost what's their
He's played
big
one game, basically.
well, no, but then they also lost their big tight end, who I can't remember, Jonas Smith.
Oh, Gianno Smith. Yeah, he
Jonas
went to
Smith.
England.
Yeah, which was a big loss for them, really. So I'm curious if they miss him more than people want to recognize. I mean, Henry's still Henry. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you would pick the Bills right now. Let's be real here.
I know, the way the defense is playing, especially.
Yeah.
I'm also curious because on the other side, like, you're without Julio, and then AJ Brown is dealing with a hamstring injury. Apparently, he was back, but yeah, he didn't play well. 6 targets, 38 yards.
Yeah, I think that's Bills are gonna. The Titans might be one of those random games where they things kind of click together for them, but
yeah,
I wouldn't put on that.
Same.
But, wow, we actually made it through the whole list.
Made it. Less than 2 hours. It took us less than 30 minutes to get through the list.
That's our best time with just me and you.
I know. And we also made sure we didn't just go on and on. Because we can just talk about the positions. I'd be like,
we really
okay,
can. We could have gotten the whole episode, not even talked about any of the actual games that occurred. Outside of a couple.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I tried to just gloss over previous matchups too.
Yeah.
So missed the weeks.
Anyways. I should have muted Discord this whole time. It was blowing up this whole time.
I let it blow up. I don't care. But good times.
Yeah.
Boys. Appreciate you being on.
Of course. Hopefully next week we can both have our teams have won.
Bye week. Either way.
So okay, at the very least your team will have won.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what this is. You always knew what this was.
You've been on the nerd version.
Yeah.
Which I haven't done in like a month.
Apparently, just once you had me on there, you just peaked, I guess.
Yeah, well, that was peak. I'm like, all right, man, there's nowhere higher I can go. Cut it off here.
But if you have me on there again, I'll show you just how much lower it can go.
I might need to revive it then.
There's one thing I can do. I can help you debase anything.
Well, everyone have a good night. Catch you next time, Tuesdays. Catch me.
I charge extra for that.